So yeah, welcome everyone. David Curtis from Bellevue Grazing Company. My wife Robbie and Sophie are involved in this business here. We run an organic cropping operation, and we also run a Dorper and White Dorper stud, and we also do commercial prime Dorper land supplies as well. We farm a bit over 5,000 acres in total, and yeah, so we're reasonably diversified. We sort of got a bit tired of the whole chemical farming thing, and back in probably about 6 or 8 years ago, we sort of started to have concerns about, continual chemical use and human health, and so for us there was a bit of a reset back then, and we actually started by just doing a couple of blocks of land to see how we go, because it's sort of reinventing the way you farm, and since then it's been a slow evolution, and I recognise there's some long-term organic farmers here that'll know a hell of a lot more than me. The purpose of today was not for me to tell you how to farm, it's to say, well, we're involved in a committee that's been started through AOL, we're the Grains Committee, and the idea of this committee is to try and get some interaction between organic farmers. We are isolated. I've got no one around here that's farming organically, so we feel that collectively if we can talk together and share ideas and go and visit other places, we can learn together, because we are in a bit of a void. All the money is invested in conventional agronomy, so the minute I stop spending $100,000 a year on chemicals, the agronomists stop coming through the gate. So you do feel on your own, but I will recognise, and I know like people like Neil Sullivan have been farming organically for most of their life, so we're very much new kids, and I'm certainly not trying to tell anyone to farm, but if there's something here that you see that might be useful in your operation, well, that's what we're trying to achieve today. So we've got fairly tight timelines, and I'll do my absolute best not to stick to that. So actually my time's almost up. But anyway, so look, it is quite a tight program today. So we'll have a look at some example. After we go here, we'll jump in some cars and then we'll drive through this part of the property. We'll look at some examples of there's some pasture cropping, some no-till farming, some minimum till and some full tillage. So just some example, but the big reset for us was after the drought, and I did a course with Peter Andrews, and I guess our reset was not to have bare dirt, and not to have, in the case of people spraying, like trying to create a hydrated landscape. So what we do in our property, we can either move it towards a desert or we can move it towards a rainforest based on how we do things and what we do. So with that in mind, and after going through 5 years of drought, the idea of having country dug up or bare, didn't really sit. So we're sort of trying to come up with ways of doing less or minimal or no tillage, and grow successfully. And so far we're fairly happy with what we've achieved.
I'm presenting on behalf of Nikki, our CEO. So unfortunately she is unwell today, and very disappointed that she can't be here to see this grain day. She has made amazing progress in the 3 years since we demerged with ACO to become, make AOL more of an industry peak body, which the organic industry needs at this point. So for those of you who are new to this, the Australian Organic Limited, we used to be together with ACO, and that was formed over 27 years ago. We demerged 3 years ago, so we do not certify organic per se. You've got Michael here from ACO who you can talk to specifically more about that. But we want to represent the organic industry for issues to do with even mentorship programs, export market access, even just making organic regulated domestically. These are like the larger issues that we are working with at the moment for the broader organic industry. So within this, we published the 2021 Australian Organic Market Report, and with this, we are trying to quantify all the organic insights that, Abaris didn't even quantify organic agriculture. And this is the same when you pay your levies. You pay all your organic levies typically to conventional producers. So with that in mind, it's very difficult to get, the statistics of the organic industry, but that is what we have tried to do with the Organic Market Report. So they are all in the bags here. There should be one per person at least, if not more. So please grab a hold of the market report if you haven't had a look to get a bit more insight. But I'm just going to go through a little bit of what Nikki wanted to talk to you about. So my speciality is, the technical side. So my previous gig before this was a farm manager, a lot smaller than this, so I think this is amazing. But when you have any technical questions, I'm the person to come to, so I apologise if this marketing report isn't up to scratch, but I will do my best in lieu of Nikki. So if we look at consumer insights, 56% of shoppers purchased organic in the past 12 months. And when you look at an organic symbol or industry symbol, a bud symbol that we offer and own is recognised by over 62% of shoppers. And this has increased from 51% in a short time period. We're definitely working to get the bud more recognised when it comes to labelling, and so that consumers can see that their product that they're buying is certified organic and trust in that product. The past 2 years, 37% of organic shoppers increased their household food allocation of organic, which is amazing. And when you think about why people purchase organic, the main reason behind this is because they want a food product that does not have chemicals. A food product that they can give to their children without being scared they didn't wash it properly, or that it might do more harm than good. But within organics, the biggest reason why people are hesitant to buy products is the price margin or the price difference when it comes to certain organic products. And I believe that the more that we promote the organic industry and the more producers we have, I hope that we can still, provide you an excellent income, but also make that space more competitive. And as technology builds, that will lead to a positive increase. So here we've got, a few shoppers. If you split up the 56% of shoppers that bought organic in the last 12 months, more than half of the organic shoppers check for certification marks. So, we hope to bring in domestic regulation by the end of next year, but this also means that if you do have products, now is the time to start, if you don't already have, putting the certification marks on your products, so that people can recognise that. And of the shoppers, I think that 7% they're devoted organic food shoppers that only buy organic. You've got 18% that are sort of committed, that buy it regularly. You've got 31% that are dabbling. They buy it every now and again, potentially when there's a good deal on. And then you've got that also 28% that are curious. And if you can sort of make the curious and the dabbling people buying it more often, that's the market that we also want to aim for. So this is just a graphic showing how much the recognition of the bud has increased, and as you can see, the number of people that have not been exposed to the logo, it's down to 21% of people that do not recognise the bud logo. So if we look between 2019 and 2021, you can see that there's been an increase in organic sales, and definitely the organic industry, we estimate that to be 1 billion at this point in time, and the government has these goals of reaching 100 billion by 2030. And increasing, organic production, which is a high value product, is definitely part of that and what we are pushing going forward. So as can see, the organic packaged food market is probably what has increased the most, but even organic beverages. I hope you've all had organic wine, doesn't give you hangovers, same with organic beer. Also I've heard, but you'll have to test that yourself. And you know, these are the statistics that we want to continue to see with an. So here, this is a map of domestic regulation or organic regulations. The way to interpret this map is, you know, anything in green, you pretty much have a fully regulated market that you either need to pay to access at this point, or you need to have an equivalent or contacts within that country. Anything that's grey has little or no organic policy. Anything that's blue, it's under development, and even yellow, it's like, you know, close to being domestic regulation. So you see Australia and New Zealand, they're in red because we only regulate organic for export markets only. So, you know, New Zealand has got an equivalency agreement with China that will only stay if they make sure that there is domestic regulation for their organic products. So the reason we're pushing so much towards domestic regulation, not only for Australian consumers, is to make sure that this will hopefully facilitate equivalency agreements for those of you who are exporting your product, so that you don't have to pay that additional market access fee. So if we go into grains, Victoria, highest number of grain producers, followed by New South Wales and then Queensland. We don't have the exact amounts for you. The biggest international grain market for organic at the moment is South Korea. And, you know, these statistics, we can only get those statistics from the certification bodies as how many people are registered to be producing grain. So, you know, that is a figure that will definitely be fluctuating and changing, and unfortunately, yeah, can't say that the total amounts, but, you know, this is identifying the limitations and where we're working towards.
Right, all right, thanks guys. We will make it quick, because a lot of what we want to do and talk about is actually out in the paddock, and as David rightly said, we don't pretend to have all the answers by any means, and it's days like this that we get to talk about things and you know, get some ideas and work out what you can try yourself at home. So I just wanted to cover off, you know, what are the common issues in organic grain farming, and the two most common ones are about soil moisture. How can I capture it? How can I store it and avoid the losses? And how can I use it more efficiently? Probably no surprises there. And the second most common one is about nutrition. Is how can I make sure I've got enough nitrogen to grow the crops I want to grow, and, you know, how am I going to get all the other nutrients in there as well? So the answers, in inverted commas, capturing more moisture is primarily about ground cover. Should be no surprises there. Sometimes there's, especially on slopes, there's dispersive issues and soil structure issues, but really capturing soil moisture is all about ground cover. Whereas moving that, once you've captured it, moving it a little bit deeper in the soil to avoid evapotranspiration, so evaporation and transpiration through the plants, is all about soil structure, getting it to move deeper and minimising, this is where the weeds come in, minimising anything stealing that moisture. So we're just trying to lay a bit of framework and perspective here. And the water use efficiency is all about using that water more efficiently. It's all about, you know, if you've got, you know, 200 millimetres of moisture as a combination of stored soil moisture and useful rain, and how are you going to turn that into kilograms per hectare of grain? And a lot of people are surprised that it's not until, so winter cereals, for example, it's not until you get to around about the 4 tonne per hectare yield level that your water use efficiency is most efficient. Anything less than that, you're probably 9, 10, 11 kilograms per hectare for every millimetre you put through it. Once you get up above 4 tonne hectare, then it's more closer to 12, 15 kilos per hectare. So you obviously use more water, but you use it more efficiently the higher the yield. But then it plateaus. Once it gets to about 4 tonnes and above, that's when it maintains that efficiency. And it is difficult when you're dealing with weeds, but accumulating soil moisture before your crop. The GRDC funded some top 20% most profitable farmer series 3 or 4 years ago now, and the take home from that was grow the same amount of grain every 5 years and less crops. So if you want to take something home to think about, try to think how you can grow less crops, but still grow more grain. That's the key to being more profitable with this. Got to thinking. So nutrition, having enough nitrogen. Nitrogen, there's a little bit of a misconception. Legumes do support rhizobia bacteria which fix nitrogen, and that's a great source of nitrogen, but the majority of nitrogen that plants access comes from soil organic matter. It's what the organic matter in the soil that mineralises each year into a form that plants can use. So it's not about, it's not just about legumes, it's about building organic matter. And the other nutrients, the mineralisation of organic matter. Organic matter, I need a whiteboard. Organic matter is made up primarily of carbon, but it also has a big chunk of nitrogen, phosphorus and sulphur. And in how it's always happened long before man came along, the biology will mineralise that those nutrients in there and make plant available around about 3% of that nitrogen, phosphorus and sulphur. It will turn it into plant available form, which will grow, your dinosaur feed or whatever is growing, more than enough for what we need. But we've come along and burnt off the carbon, so the organic matter pool is so much lower, and that 3% is not enough to grow what we want to grow. I know I'm going through this pretty quickly, but I just wanted to sort of set a bit of a framework. So if the key to better rainfall capture is ground cover and organic matter, and soil organic matter is where our nutrients come from, and the organic matter is what supports all the soil biology that go and do the nutrient cycling and all the hard work for us. Tillage destroys organic matter. So that's what I wanted to leave you with. I don't want to be too negative, but we're trying to work ways to minimise. I'm not saying eliminate tillage. I'm just saying we've got to find ways to minimise it, or we're just going to keep going backwards. So that's a little bit of a. I'm not proposing we have the answers. The things we're working on, we're trying to use cover crops and narrow rows and pasture cropping and all sorts of different techniques. But I'm really keen to see what you guys have done and suggest or ideas in the paddock.
Basically, we're just going to have 4 stops. We'll start here and then we'll go around the corner. There's some favour beans and then we'll go across the road. If I could just say, when we go across the road, it is a public road and people do roar along there quite fast. So you'll see that we'll be going, so just be cautious of going across that road. This first example here, this is just us trying to elevate the feed in winter for just a normal grass country. So this is just natural Queensland bluegrass country, which we really like. Well, through the drought, the bluegrass, natural grasses seem to hang on the best for us. So we're a huge fan of that. So as those grasses become dormant going into winter and the feed value falls off, we look to ways to put some nitrogen into the country in winter, plus improve the feed value. So normally this here would be like that paddock next door. It's just got medics in that one. So, and all we did with this was with that disc planter up there, we just drilled in vetch and oats and some medics. So our country isn't naturally covered in medics. So it's a small investment to do that, and yeah, you get a long-term benefit. So this is year 2 of doing that. Yeah, this example of year 2, and talking to Colin Sice with his pasture cropping, he reckoned it took him 7 years of pasture cropping to get his country to where he wanted to go. Like, it wasn't an overnight thing, and I believe the more root system diversity and plants that we get into this country, over time, the better structure that's going to happen in the soil, the more easy it is to just go and drill into it. So, we didn't, they sort of suggest when you do multi-species to add, brassicas and all the rest of it. But when we did this, we were still we didn't know whether we were in a drought or out of a drought. It was sort of March, April period where is the time we like to do this. So our investment was not a lot. There's 5 kilos a hectare of vetch and a kilo of a medic, and it's all got to be bare seed, and you have to get the letter and assure that it's which is easy enough to do. To get that. And that other paddock there, that's a CSIR road trial, and they used Titan rapeseed is what it's called. It's as tough as stuff.
It's hard to kill.
You can't kill it. And we planted that dry last March at 3 kilos to the hectare dry, and then it rained, and then it came up, and then the medics came with it, and it's still there. And I don't know. It's just an example of a very tough brassica for stock feed. That one there. Yeah. Has anyone got any question on this side, or we move?
I've got one. So you said it's got bare seed. Did you inoculate it for nitrogen fixation?
Yeah. We put inoculum on it for nitrogen fixing, and we also use another certified product from Nutritech Solutions platform.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's. So there's a packet of that up in the shed if anyone wants to see it. And look, all these things are hard to quantify. Do you sort of agree?
It is, and we should. Marco's here from NTS too. He could probably answer some questions specifically about the product. I think you covered it pretty well. We're coming out of drought where the perennial grass, summer grass, is not performing quite as well as we want to. We're getting to the end of summer, into autumn, and there's not much moisture in there. One of the hardest things we do is we know that the right strategy doesn't always work. So we can put seed in here, and we're not always going to get a result like this. So we try and keep the dollars down, but give ourselves the upside of getting some growth like this. So we're trying to cycle nutrients. So most of the nutrients in the soil, we're just trying to get the feeding the biology and just get things going. And there's a fair few places, we'll probably talk a little bit later on, there's a fair few paddocks where we've tried this, and the rainfall's been sufficient, but the growth has been quite disappointing. And I'm pretty sure that's to do, we just haven't got that cycling and everything going yet. We had some waterlogging events, and we probably knocked off some biology that we were actually trying to encourage.
My other point is that, and probably not get alarmed with that, because we're trying to get the systems to talk to each other again, and literally have the communication between plant and microbiome. So we often see it might be going slowly, but it's because it's bringing in all the data. It's saying I only have so much moisture, I only have so much nutrient, so I'll grow according to that. So you might actually see it still going up and doing things, but it's just not flash and showy like high nitrates used to give us, sort of thing. So yeah.
Interesting to that point. And the beauty of the multi-species is sometimes you'll see the field peas or the vetch thriving in the same environment where the oats and barley's not doing anything. So there's something going on there.
Yeah.
The other thing, the comment about the grazing and taking the time for the whole system to get going, I believe the grazing management is one of the big things. Once you've got your grazing management right, these other things will happen a lot quicker.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
So you do stocking that until the pods form, and then let the seed drop so that's going to do its own thing next year?
Yeah, this has actually already been grazed. It was really a lot, probably twice as growthy as that. So it's been grazed, and that's the regrowth now. So we've already had a heap of rams in there. I think there was 400 in there. And we try and keep everything moving. What we've done, you notice the electric fencing. Well, all this place, electric fencing, we've done over 50-something kilometres. And the more we split the paddocks, the better the grazing is. And, so our program has been to split paddocks. So the other side of that tree line that we planted down there was 4 200-acre paddocks. Well, they're all 100-acre paddocks now. So we're just continually trying to split, and we try and move the sheep weekly. Like, that's our basic program, and just sort of, and internal parasite management, all those sort of issues are part of the whole mix of what we do. But sort of going into an example, over the other side of the road there's a couple of blocks that was sort of long-term grass country, and what we found on the first year, when you try and plant a grass species like an oats or barley or a treated barley into a grass, it doesn't go that well. Like it's, you know, there's some allelopathic or something, but the legumes, so I mean, I could look at what we did across the road. We've done 300 acres over there in 3 paddocks, and you know, you could be a bit disappointed with the growth of the grass species, but all the legumes are incredible. You know, we got medics there we didn't have, and other things. So that's a sort of a year 1 example, you know, and so I'm hoping in year 2 those, as the system improves, I think as Sarah said, you know, it'll become easier to do that. But winter's our tough time. We run we've got a bit over 5,000 sheep here at the moment, so that pinch in winter is probably the toughest time to manage. So anything we can do to elevate that with a low input cost, you know, it sort of seems a worthwhile thing to do. Yeah.
So is your veg juice you cost year 1? Will you get enough come up next year?
The woolly pod probably more so than the popany. Like, so if you wanted to crop, the popany's soft seeded, and the woolly pod's sort of more a permanent veg. But they reckon it's one of the best nitrogen producers.
It can fix a lot of nitrogen. Yeah. It's still related to biomass, but
yeah.
Because you don't use herbicides, how much trouble do you have with the vegetation on the electric fences?
Well, we bought it when we started with this. We bought a little thing called a tow and mow, which, we're guys that do it, and so we actually slashed along them. But this year we didn't. We sort of tolerated. We actually run 5 electric fence, 5 different units, and they're all fairly big. And as long as we sort of got 4,000 to 5,000 volts in there, we're happy. But what we find, if the sheep are born and bred here, they trained at a young age and they just don't go. So we've sold rams to people, and I know one guy, he said he had ewes that'll go through his fence, and our rams were left behind. He actually had to open the gate because they weren't naughty. But the Dorpers are probably rated as one of the worst to go through fence apart from goats. So this works for them, and but I think you can use an organic product called Slasher, but if you're NOP certified, you can't. So Slash is a product you have to use in the heat of the day, and it sort of burns it off, but it doesn't kill it. And it is, so there are a couple, and I think there's BioWeed. Does anyone use that? But, so there are some, and the Slash is made out of grape skins or something. So I don't know a lot about it, but I know, and you got to be careful using it if you're NOP certified, so it can cause you grief.
The the rhizobia nodules. It's all passing around.
The fence is off, anyone's
Not until you get over, David.
You can actually grow them beautifully.
This paddock here, this is just our first serious attempt at favour bank. This has organic barley in the type here, so virtually we did nothing with this barley. Then we had a bit of summer weed and that come up, which we grazed, and having the sheep was beneficial there. And then luckily this paddock was nice and clean, and we've just drilled in with the disc planter at 100 kilos a hectare of favour beans, and haven't done anything with it apart from 100 kilos of seed. And then we put that what's that fertiliser called?
Minamax carbon, was it?
That. So we put a bit of that down. I think 50 kilos a hectare, and that was it. So we like the aggressiveness of this plant. So if we can get some seed off this, we'll use it in our multi-species mixes next year, because they're great taproot, and it's sort of going to help. And the sheep will eat it in a multi-species thing. So this time next year, hopefully some of these grass paddocks will have this added. And the field peas over here, they got absolutely swamped when it with water when we planted them. They look really sick and down and out and yellow, and somehow or other made an amazing recovery. I'm not too worried about the milk thistle. We're sheep love milk thistle, so I can tolerate them. But yeah, we'll harvest them too and put them in the moly species as well. Yeah, Ian, have you got any?
I was just going to, is Quentin here? Kialla?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, right in front of me. About any comments about damage or grades of favour beans and things, like from your point of view?
We haven't bought favour beans for
Yeah.
years.
Right.
Yeah. So we don't have any markets much.
But
Well,
it's
don't
great
have
stock
any.
feed. Yeah.
Do you keep this for your sheep, David? Or?
Yeah, we could, but I was wondering whether it could be potentially used as a protein meal source. Yeah, in feed mill, you guys?
Or
I
the
don't know.
Gundy guys, they talk to the Gundy guys about, they've, you know, this sort of snack food and all sorts of things happening with these sorts of beans. So the McIntyre Alliance,
Yeah.
is that it, Mossy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the benefits of the soil are not just nitrogen fixation. It's nearly always softer, and that taproot's gone down and had some benefits. Yeah.
So we'd probably put organic wheat in here next year. You know, it'd be great to follow this up with wheat after you got something like that pumping all this nitrogen in.
So how are you in an organic situation dealing with pests and diseases?
Ian, healthy plants.
Well, yeah. There's definitely that angle of, you know, the healthier it is, the more resistant. There are some inputs, allowed inputs. Even the Heliothus, you know, the Vivus and the dipels and, you know, all those sorts of things.
Butterfly pea extract.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the Zero X.
Yeah,
stuff,
because
yes.
anything that chews or sucks, Zero X works on as well, and it's
Which is-
organically certified.
And it's supposed to work on the fall armyworm as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. Although it's hard to explain to someone how to milk a butterfly to get butterfly pea.
No, it's the whole plant. But it actually even does it, so that's something to add into your mixes
Yeah.
from, you know, in multi-species insecticide perspective, because I actually think it works by repelling the insect. So there's 4 modes of action that they've unpacked at the moment, and the whole plant except the flower releases this compound, which is actually a circular peptide. So to get it registered, they had to work out supposedly what the action is. So it's a circular peptide, and yeah, it's expressed in every part of the butterfly pea plant except the flower. So even the roots are putting that compound into the soil, so they're going to help with root-borne insects and all that sort of stuff as well.
It might be a good companion crop for
Absolutely,
sorghum and corn and things.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
So the idea is there, sky the limit, really. Yeah, butterfly pea.
And I think this
And
is
it's getting processed. That's actually an Australian product. Robert Mensah gave birth to the idea, and it's being made right now in Gundawindi.
By who, Sarah? Who's doing that?
Growth ag.
Growth ag, yep. And the Fergus is the local knowledge guys in Toowoomba. So
But how good is it to be able to walk through your paddock and grab some lunch, grab a snack?
yeah, that's right.
What
Different
variety
perspective.
of bathing is it?
Nasma? Oh, no, what?
Dozer. Is it Dozer?
Oh, it was Dozer. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
Dozer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the winter, yeah.
Well, when did you last have canary in here?
Canary.
Yeah.
Never that I know. Where's what?
Well, because nearly every 2 metres you've got a canary plant, as I can see at the moment. So that might be a fun one to ask. The guys that are here before you.
I know.
Might be a bit of wild canary. Yeah, the other thing, you notice the tree lines we planted down, all that one down there's 2 kilometres, and we did another one, then another one. There's, and sort of since we've been here, we've been on this process of planting, trying to plant trees just to provide stock and windbreak. You get days like yesterday where you get a howling wind, and to me it's one of the great things you can do. And you know, if there's something that I'm going to leave behind, hopefully it'll be a few decent tree lines around the place, and you know, and
we're getting black cockatoos, like with the Casuarina cristatas. Every year we're getting the flocks of the black cockatoos coming back to munch on the pods, which is amazing.
Yeah, and a lot more bird life. You know, that's what we're seeing, just a heap more bird life since we've been organic coming back onto the farm. So
Do you notice that they're stealing the moisture away from the crop on the edges?
What's that?
The tree lines. Do you notice it?
Not really. It's funny, you know. Like I think the protection from the wind sort of counteracts that to a degree. You know, even in 200 metres. You know, look, if we didn't do that, look, and everyone, you know, if it wasn't for these laneways and roadway, look, there'd be nothing. Well, people would be happy to knock them all over. And if we have nothing, well, what have we got? A terminal landscape. You know, you just got. You know, I think if everyone, and I think the black soil is a great spot to start, because you go on a horrible day in the black soil and it howls from one end to the other. And I mean, you got to have a nice place to live, haven't you? Know, I mean, it's not you see a lot of guys farming right to the edge of the creek and farming right to the road, but I mean, you're not taking away a lot of country, and there is a benefit. And surely having bird life on your farm that are going to eat insects could be a positive, you know, rather than a negative. So that's the way we look at it. And, yeah.
We've been getting more inquiries about pollinator species, so we've tried to do some summer and winter. It's just some flowers, like literally flowers and vegetables, and buckwheat and different things, just to try and inject a bit of pollinator. Some people probably use them as a strip on the. Other people just have it in their multi-species.
Dave, I think there was some work done in the 80s about like smaller blocks and shade lines and everything we're talking about. Like, it's just when you make the financial assessment of that package of things with smaller blocks, it's just a different ball game from broadacre farming. Yeah. I think the aggregate benefit is.
Field peas as tough as the favours? Are the field peas as tough as the favours?
Yeah, well, yeah, they are. We put field peas in, in with the multi-species, and they're tough, all right. Yeah. Actually, I think that, I'm trying to think whether some of the paddocks we're going to, they might have some field peas in there, but yeah.
The field peas are probably more drought tolerant. The favours, we actually, some of these were a bit close to the surface when we planted them, and we lucked in with some rain.
Yeah.
But favours really, to get a good grain crop, you really need a good full profile and a bit of luck with some rain. Whereas the field peas are much more drought tolerant.
Yeah. So we head to the next slide. Up on the right, there's a long-term paddock of lucerne there that we use for pushing our prime lamb along. I'm not a huge fan of monocultures, but that's been there for long, even before we were organic, I think. But it's still there, and it's got other stuff in it now, which is good. So and then we'll head over to across the road. But just this country was dead. There was the dirt. It was just dead dirt. You know, had no smell that we now have with the sheep and livestock. So this has probably been a bit of a work in progress. That paddock there's been long-term bluegrass, but to try and there's a couple of areas down there that weren't taking water that were a bit panish. So we've used the yeoman in there to try and keep the grass there, but also to capture water. And I'm a huge fan of yeoman, and you don't have to rip hell out of the ground. You don't have to rip the back end out of your tractor. Just set your tractor at a depth that you feel you can comfortably pull. I don't think you need to go ridiculously deep, because what we find, you not only got your rip lines, but you end up with that dish in between to capture water. So for that, the reason we've yeomaned that is to capture more summer storms, hopefully, and then also give us the opportunity. We'll probably drill more legumes and stuff similar to this in that one next year. So that'll be the process. Like I said earlier, we don't have natural medics over everything here. We bring them in, and once you've done it once, they reseed and you're up and away. And this paddock, come over here and same story. It had a few roly-poly on it, so I actually went over this with a disc chain, and you find with disc chains are great at plucking out roly-poly and smashing them up, and rather than ending up against your fences, and it's a cheap operation. So the only preparation this had was one pass up and down here with the like a Kelly chain, Brookfield chain thing, and that was basically to smash down a bit of roly-poly, and then so this is mainly vetch and clover, medics, and I think we put field peas in here, or maybe might be more up at the other one, but So we may consider harvesting this. I don't know, I've never tried it, but I know when we harvest oats, we get this seed in it. So to get a supply of vet seed, yeah, we may end up having the luxury this year of trying to harvest that seeds. And good tight country. You're out there, Ian. Yeah. And this is what's called box soil here, so it's shallow topsoil. It's pretty well low in everything, you know.
It's probably, I mean, it looks pretty good now, but it's probably worth mentioning a month ago it didn't. You know, we were a little bit, not disappointed, but, you know, it took a while to get here, didn't it?
Yeah. But I think that's elevated. So if you look at elevating your country, this is a stage in that elevation, isn't it? Like you got more cover, more organic matter. So you think that, you know, we're elevating rather going back to bare dirt or something like that, where you're virtually going back to square one. And
just like there's a succession of you know, plants you'll see in a pasture or a bare fallow, there's a succession of biology, you know, the fungal bacteria ratios and things. Got to work with those as well. Nutrition for a particular crop is not so much about what you put down with the seed, it's all about building the pool of nutrients and getting them cycling and utilising the biology that do the work for us. So that's really key to understanding. Like even in a hardcore industrial irrigated cotton system, you know, majority of the nitrogen the plant takes up still comes from organic matter, even when they put 600 kilos per hectare of urea on it. So it's, you know, you've got to understand how the nutrient cycle and everything. As far as the option, we use the Mineral Max Carbon, which is a custom blend based on soft rock phosphate. It's got lots of micronutrients and goodies and gypsum and humates and all sorts of goodies in there. It's not so much about nutrition at all. I mean, some of the micronutrients are, but it's really about supporting that, you know, the initial germination and driving the roots a bit deeper and supporting the biology. It's food for the bug.
Supporting your microherd. Yeah. And like the biggest bang for your buck is actually putting biology on your seed.
Yeah.
When you're planting, like, you know, it's cents. It costs you cents per seed, or even less per seed, really, because thousands of seeds. But the impact that we see for people, just even if that's your first step, because it's part of the communication. It's part of waking up and actually knowing it's got a community to support it. So a bit like people coming here today, like, you know, like David was saying, you've got all these other people now. You're not alone. So it's almost giving the seed that as well when it starts. Yeah.
There's also different things you can do with different plants. Different plants are able to scavenge for different nutrients from different depths. And then particularly in a multi-species scenario, they'll network with each other as well and share the nutrients and moisture and things better. Lots of different angles you can take, I suppose, to build on deficiencies in the soil.
That's a good point, particularly for sulphur. Yes, some of those big sulphur is an anion. It's negatively charged, not held to clay, so it'll wash down with moisture. And some of those deep tap-rooted plants will bring them back up again.
And look for your yellow flowers because that's linked to sulphur.
Yellow sulphur.
So David, with your tree lines, do you have when you plant them, do you have to water them at all, or you just make sure you do it at a good time?
We try and plant them in April, end of April. And so we do a rip 12 months prior. So to collect water, we rip that tree line, and try and get as prepared as well as we can. And then it's a bit like planting a crop. You hope, you got a full profile of moisture before you plant the tree. We don't just wake up one morning and go and plant them because that's self-created nightmare. So we do try and do some preparation. And all our fencing and all our tree, everything's done here in multiples of 12 metres. So with all these paddocks, you drive in here, all GPS, and you'll finish out at that gate. And we're 1.5 metres off the fence. So every fence line we've done, we've used the tractor GPS. So we're not ending up down there with half a width to do. So everything's sorted in width. So when we did this, though, it was back before GPS was serious. It was years ago, and they just had DPI had a Toyota with some sort of thing, and they mapped it out for us, luckily. And but it's just all about efficiency, you know. So that was
gate either side so you can come in and leave there.
Yeah, so gate on both sides, and yeah. Also forgot to mention Jess here from Farmagronomy. Jess has done a lot of work with us here. Yeah, sort of.
Ask her all the hard questions.
Yeah, she asks all the tough questions, and yeah. But anyway, we can handle it. So, but if you were going organic, when we started, look, it was we did. You know, there are products you can use. If you're used to using products, you can swap your starter Z for guano. Like it's certified organic. If you want, you know, you don't have to take big steps. You can take baby steps. So simply we changed like starter Z to guano, and guano's still got the calcium, the sulfur, and all the goodies in it that they take out and put in starter Z. We use the K-Tech pelleted product also, which was just like your normal dynamic liquid sort of your garden pellet. We buy them in 1 tonne bags, drop them straight in the air seeder, and we've had really good results. And the one we used had blood and bone, I think we used last year. So there are some pretty handy products that you're going to, even if conventionally, I think you'd be better off conventionally using some of them, you know, simply because there's such a wider suite of nutrition in them, you know. Than,
and there's more and more coming on the market. Worm Hit do a good job, and there's a Terra Firma fertiliser that's got a pellet.
Mineral mulch.
Yeah.
Another thing too is to think about landscape function and functionality. Is what we talked about last Wednesday. That we're in a timber country here versus say Yarranlee where you would be in a prairie. And I've sort of been unpacking that over the years, and if you look through your timber, you'll actually notice that, you know, there was often a legume tree in the mix as well. And I think we might be seeing that the landscape where the trees were are actually familiar with, so we're waking up the ancient microbes, they're familiar with actually getting nitrogen from a plant because they were getting it from the trees. Whereas you go to a prairie, there was less in the mix, there was more forbs and grasses and things, because we actually see that they almost seem to have even more dreadlocks and things like that, so they might have more of a relationship with the rhizosphere, so the free living nitrogen fixers. So, and that's sort of starting to make us understand a bit more what we're seeing in, say, the long-term trial sites at Billa versus Pampas and things like that. So yeah, connecting to what the old microherd that you're waking up is used to. Does that make sense?
You mentioned earlier about the growing number of what are termed allowed inputs. I think one of the challenges for organic growers is going, well, where do I find them? And I haven't got necessarily the answer for that, but my friend over here might be able to give us some pointers.
You can jump on the ACO website. We do have a search function, which I keep getting told it's going to improve, but I don't know. It's usable, but it's not perfect at the moment. Yeah, you can search for the kind of keywords that might be in a product name at this point. Whereas I think in the future we're hoping to be able to kind of more categorise them, so you can like look for certain types of inputs that you're after. But that's a good place to to become familiar with. And a lot of the other certification bodies have got similar kind of search functions as well.
Byproduct, so from the grading and milling process that we then value add in Oz Organic Feeds up the back. So all of this product here is it's byproduct from either hulls or whatever might come off in the grading process. So we'll go in here first, which is the grading room, and then we'll go around through the mill into the retail packing and then through the grading process is simply going through the size and then a gravity table down the bottom which basically sorts on bulk density, so it separates. So a stone that might be the same size as wheat will get through the grading, but it won't get through the gravity because it will ride to one side. Yeah, so So we hammer mill that and goes into the stock feed because it's good fibre. So it's got feed value in it, so nothing goes to waste. So that's going through that hammer mill and it gets blown up the back to Oz Organics. We've got about 12,000 tonne of storage on site because we've got to buy everything when it harvests. So we've got the ability to store 12,000 tonne, but we also have off-site storages as well. So when we fill the silo, we put the CO2 in, pushes the oxygen out the top, and we hold it at 60% CO2 saturation to kill the bugs. So that's, we've got a number of things we do for pest control because pests are probably one of our biggest issues. So the stock feed mill, we built that in 2018. We do some conventional milling in that just because we've got plenty of capacity, and that's mainly our customers from that are organic chicken operators. But we've also developed some beef supplements for the ruminant industry. This process here is called conditioning. So for milling wheat, you've got to wet it, and that keeps the bran layer intact. So wheat will come in at anywhere from sort of 10 to 12% moisture. For the milling process, you've got to take it up to 16, and that helps when you mill it. The bran layer, the outer bran layer, remains flaky. And that makes a lot cleaner flour than if you mill it dry. So that's for white flour. Stone ground flour is a different story. It's the whole grain. Just round the corner is our intake pit. So trucks come over the pit there, and it feeds in. And that system feeds these 6 silos. There's 4,000 tonners can feed over into those ones and also feed into Oz Organics. And packing into 20 kilos or bulk bags. So this is part of the system where it goes out to the mill run. So we separate into bran and pollard for different clients. So this is sort of end process, quite manual. So we'll go into the mill. It might be a bit noisy in there, but in the flour mill we've got 4 milling lines. The main one is wheat mill, and then we've got a corn and soy mill, then a traditional stone mill, and then what we call a pin mill, which is just for small volume grains. So we'll go in. So really the wheat's been elevated up, goes down through that mill over there, the first grind, goes back up through the centre, comes back in, works its way through all until you're taking off the right specification. Each one of the mills blows in one of these bulk silos, and then when we're packing off from one of those silos, the boys just hook up to whichever one, and it sucks the flour up into this bin here. So these are called valve bag. You slide them on there, it squirts 20 kilos of flour in, and then he's got to just tuck that down, and the pressure of the flour seals it off, just like cement bags. And we were able to print in the side gussets for Korean or Japanese lettering or whatever. So we've got drops down through goes through a metal detector, and then we print batch numbers and that sort of thing. So you get microscopic pest eggs that no matter how fine you mill the flour, they'll potentially still survive that, and because we can't use any nasties, this is the only way we control. So we control pests with CO2 gas, with cool storage, pyrethrin fogging in the mill, and then it's just general plant hygiene. So pests are probably one of our biggest issues as an organic mill to manage. Because they're prevalent, they're everywhere, and pests are not just weevils. So weevils don't actually live in flour, they'll tend to live in grain. And then you get warehouse moth in flour. So they're probably our biggest, and people for some reason don't like getting grubs in their flour. I don't quite understand it myself.
extra minerals.
Protein flour.
I sell it as, no. I mean, and as, go back 15 years, it was, oh, well, mate, it's organic, so that's what it's got to be. But now that's just not acceptable. And that's fair enough, it's just that as industries progress, you get more professional, but the consumer gets more demanding as well. So, yeah, it's a difficult one for us, and, we handle it as best we can. So the guys get picking slips every day. Some product is made to order, so the pancake mix there, it's obviously got a Japanese label, it's made to order. But a lot of product is just made to stock, and they'll pick orders on a daily basis being dispatched all over Australia. A lot of our export is made to order because it'll have specific printing on it, or it'll be, like a full container of 20 kilo bags or whatever.
To export it?
No, we send it into town. If you've got an infestation in a pallet of something, we send it into Orchie in town, and they'll freeze it. Yeah, we don't have that capability here. No. No. So we'll ship from here we'll put them in containers. We put some dry ice in the containers, just that'll get the oxygen out of the air, and we ship. Yeah. So the freezing side of it is only if we've got an infestation. Hopefully you enjoyed that quick look around. Appreciate it was a bit quick, but so now I'm just going to have a talk about the post-farm gate value chain and the opportunities in organic. So talk a little bit about our consumer, because it's important that you as producers get an understanding of what the organic consumer wants. Talk about a little bit about our end markets. Talk about price history and the effects, and what we as a processor look for in certification, and then a bit about the opportunities. Right, so health food retail. Now we've seen the health food category constantly evolve. In the 1980s, it was really fringe community based, and I remember being involved in the early 2000s, and really it was, I'm in the organic industry, and people, that hippie stuff, it was a real hippie attitude around it. But we've evolved over the years. 2010, we saw, the health food aisle expand in major supermarkets. And then 2016, we've seen it push across total supermarkets, where you've got the likes of the Aldi's, the Costco, all the supermarkets are now playing in this space. To today, where we see what we call conscious health. So people that are conscious about their health, but they're also conscious about other aspects that organic provides them. And that was even exacerbated further, during COVID, and it's accelerated that rapidly. So the younger demographic are really behind this shift to what we're calling health consumption. The millennials are one of the biggest part of that market, and they're breaking the norms, of the previous generation. Us older folk, it's just about feeding ourselves, whereas younger people now, it's, as I said, that health conscious approach, or the conscious health approach, is really driving their purchase behaviour. So what does it really mean? So healthy food is a way of life. It's not about going on a diet, to lose weight. It's about a whole approach, and eating healthy food and consuming that healthy food. So they're all, when we talk conscious, that part of it, it's how the food made, how it's made, that really matters to them. So again, they're wanting to know the story of the farmer. They're wanting to know that it was either produced ethically or environmentally, and all of those different aspects that come into that purchase. And organic sits, front and centre in providing that need. They also want to document the food and their story and take photos of it, and essentially they want to know the story of their food. So to that end, one of our marketing approaches was to develop what we call the plate to farm experience. So under organic management, we're already collecting all the batch codes, etc., that is needed to tell the story of the farmer. And we took that one step further and developed the farm to plate tracker. And I just wanted to demonstrate what that is. So I've got a packet of our flour here. If you're a consumer, you would scan this QR code on the front and then you type in the batch number, which I typed in, I prepared earlier, and you press track it. And you can also see there's Chinese, Japanese and Korean. I'm not sure which is which, but rest assured. And look out, this is, you were nearly a star there, Danny. This packet of flour here is made from a flat wheat that was sourced from Danny and Vicky at Westmar. So we tell a bit about Danny's story there, where his farm is. We don't want to embarrass him and let you read all about it, but a little bit about Google Map. We try and keep it so we don't say it's Danny Bonhoff. We don't want consumers tracking him up, so we keep a bit of anonymity there. And Jeff and Cheryl Southern from out of Bowen. And then Calvert at Gilbar. So generally there could be 3 or 4 farmers because we blend wheat. So there could be 3 or 4 farmers whose wheat is in that end product. So we did that because the organic consumer wants to know the story of their food. We didn't shut YouTube down when we launched it, unfortunately. But what we believe, it's not that everyone actually goes in there and reads about Danny. Sorry, mate, but it's about the transparency. It's there if they want to. So it gives them that confidence that, hey, we've got nothing to hide. We want to tell the whole story. So we've also haven't marketed it well, and with all of our packaging, it was sort of secondary, whereas with our new designs, it's front and centre, and we're really trying to drive that. Because it's also about giving you guys the recognition of your hard work as well, rather than it just ending at the farm gate and you waving it goodbye. At least with this system, you can have some faith that you're being recognised for your hard work as well. So we export to over 6 countries. Primary focus is in Asia, and we do both bulk and retail in there. The pancakes you see there are all going to Costco in Japan. These ones here are going to Korea. So it really, that's where we focus on. We don't worry about the US or those other areas. So a little bit about pricing. I guess this is a bit of the elephant in the room. And this is based on some analysis that I've done since 2005 when I first bought this business. So if you look at that, the red line there is conventional wheat, and the blue line is organic wheat. So you can see over time, up until about 2014, there was a strong basis or correlation between the two. And in 2014, 15 sort of broke away over that period and started to diverge. And that was a function of increasing demand on organic and seasonal influence, creating shortages of supply. So you can see that over time, it certainly moved further apart. this graph is the percentage premium paid, organic versus conventional, from, again, 2005 out to 2020. So you can see it bounces around in that band, you know, around 150 to 200%, except for a couple of pretty big spikes there, where it's gone much higher. And reality is that has done damage to our markets. It's when you're paying, you know, 3 and 4 times for as much as conventional, you know, you start to lose the consumer. And if we look at, so this is our wheat price, the one that was on the previous graph, the wheat price. Now I've overlaid our sales volume, so the red line is our sales volume, and you can see that once wheat pricing went over, so the green dotted line there is a 12-month moving average, so it's just effectively averaging out the sales volume just to make it a little bit more legible and see the trend. And you can see the trend, the 2 trend lines there, that once wheat got over that $700, the volume started trending down. And obviously the longer it stayed higher than that, the more impact it has on volume.
So does your price get reflected in the supermarket very quickly, does it, for that to happen?
In the early days, yes. And in the bulk trade, it's not so much in the supermarket, but in the bulk trade, it gets reflected fairly quickly.
It's not really going to make any difference to the consumer whether they're buying the product or not. It's not fluctuating in value. But for you to say that as soon as it gets over $700 a tonne, the demand started to drop off. Well, the consumer demand not dropping off if the prices stay the same.
No, so we over time had to increase price because there's a lot of gear here to pay for, so we've got to be profitable. And so we had to increase price. Now, we might be able to wear a price or swallow that for 12 months for a season or something, but when you've had like an extended dry period like we've had these last 4 years, you can only wear that for so long before you've got to pass a bit of it on.
So that's my comment. Like, is that being reflected into the supermarkets, which then stops the consumers buying?
Well, it's not, for us, it's not so much the supermarket exactly, it's more in the bulk trade where your bakeries, your food manufacturers, so that's where the majority of our stuff goes. But it does.
Domestic bakers, right?
Yeah, that's one of our markets, yeah. So what's happened, hey?
Is this stock the biggest volume? Or
No.
domestic flour?
No, bulk flour's much bigger in terms of volume, not so much in terms of value, and that's why we're doing more of that. Simply because it's hard to base a business on bulk if you can't buy enough wheat every year. But what's also happened is organic price of flour is up here, conventional's here. It's opened up a massive gap in between for the development of things like sustainable and regenerative and single origin, all these other plays, if you will, in between the two markets. And that has probably done us more damage. You know, the conventional doesn't necessarily affect us, but the volumes of, you know, these other claims affect the organic volume when the organic volume gets too, pricing gets too much.
So I actually, the reason I'm a little bit interested in this, I was talking to a stock feed producer, and they said that exact same thing, like, you know, maybe sustainable or regenerative is going to be more the mainstay for them, because all of a sudden, you know, the consumer was having to pay $15 a dozen for the eggs if they were going to pay $800 a tonne for the wheat, which they just physically couldn't get enough wheat. And is that the same thing happening to you, do you think? Are you going to have to go down the same track as, instead of being wholly organic or something, like more sustainable or...
Yeah, it's not a track we want to go down, because I personally, you know, there's very little way in the way of standards, and I don't know, you go and try and find a standard behind sustainable. I can't seem to find one anywhere, but people say they're there and say they're being practiced. Now, I don't know, but I haven't been able to find a standard to even have an understanding of what sustainable means.
Yeah, the Grain Corp actually sent out a newsletter just recently and said sustainable grain is here. Anyways, we read literature about it, and in all honesty, though, I'm more worried about workplace health and safety. You know, whether you have your chemicals stored safely or not. Was it a right joke? In all honesty.
I think too what you find with these organic market is that once your domestic market, which is reasonably small, is filled, we then have to look at the export market. And then when we look at the export market in some of those years where prices have gone very high, we're competing against a lot
Turkish flour,
a lot of
Germany,
Canadian.
Yeah, exactly.
Flour, so it pushes out the demand down for Australian grain on the export market.
Yeah. So it's, organic flour, it has essentially become a commodity, and we compete in Korea against the Turks and the Canadians, the Yanks, the Russians. So it makes it difficult when you price.
Has it become harder to get organic milk?
Oh, in the last 4 years, very hard. Yeah, but again, it's a seasonal thing. We get a run of good seasons, and touch wood, we're in them, and we'll rebuild the volumes.
So, I'm also wondering if has the soil nutrition status from high carbon levels being mined out to a certain degree, also then making organic wheat harder to grow from a farmer's point of view.
I'll flick that to Ian.
Yes, that's the answer. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
So the other one, just talking price out of the Australian Organic Market Report, top of the tree, this is the intensity of barriers to increase purchases. So what is the barrier that prevents someone from purchasing organic? 64% of people this year said price/value is their biggest barrier, and in 2019 it was 63%. So that the consumer is price conscious for sure, but they're still willing to pay when they perceive value. And then there's a whole list of other things there. I won't bother going through them. I just want to illustrate that it isn't an endless market in terms of price. So I guess the key takeaways, there's an upper limit to consumer price acceptance. That's we're all consumers, and we're all only prepared to pay so much. My belief is growth is limited. I'm not saying we can't handle prices higher than that, but growth is limited. So if we want to grow, I think it's around that money. And the other comment, it'll take us, I know personally speaking, it'll take us some time to rebuild our markets, our bulk markets, so that we're able to drive volume on normal season prices. So a quick word on certification. Those of you who are familiar, the world of certification is a nightmare. You've got to go to the US, it's whole of chain. You've got everyone in the chain's got to be certified. Same with China, which is the one below the US, and same with Korea, the one below that again. The other side we've got ACO, and then European and JAS. So with Japan at least, it's just the processor needs to be certified. But these are issues that we've got to consider when we're buying product, because we don't know when we buy a line of wheat or whatever. I mean, we have an idea of where our markets are, but export market access is critical to growth. So it's critical that as growers, you look at the three main certs, which primarily is ACO or Australian, whether it's by any of the certifiers, but also USDA and Korean, because our products may not go there directly, but they might be used by someone in Malaysia who's making noodles and sending the noodles to the US, so they needed NOP. So there's a real, it's critically important for the markets. Then in terms of industry support, having spent all my organic life closely affiliated with ACO, BFA, AOL, there's no questions where my loyalties lie, but people at AOL, via its certified processes and producers, gain a levy from the industry. So in order to use the Bud logo, we pay a levy. That goes to things like general market development, things like domestic legislation, which is critically important. It was touched on this morning. The importance of having domestic legislation. So at the moment we're in this ludicrous situation whereby a consumer in Japan that we export to has more integrity, I guess, in an organic product versus a consumer in domestically, because domestically there is no requirement for regulation over the term organic. So in Australia, anyone within reason can use it, but to export, we've got to actually be certified. So domestic legislation is critical, which will then hopefully lead to international equivalence, which means we don't have to certify the whole of chain for the US, for Korea, etc., etc. And it'll make the whole thing a lot more simple. And of course, the levies go to things like today, running and assisting with the organisation of events like today, as well as R&D opportunities that the Grains Committee are looking at holding in the future. So I have a firm and committed belief that it's important to give back to the industry that gives to you. So I don't have a problem with paying my levies to AOL via the certifier every year, because it's about supporting our industry. So the opportunities, the growth of conscious health. As I said, that is where everyone is increasingly more interested in their health, and organic fits front and centre across the board in that. The consumer wants to know their food. So if they buy a packet of Western milling flour, it's grain put on a stack out there that wherever there's 20 different growers contributed to it. They can't learn about where their food's coming from. So we're talking a niche market here, albeit, of course, these people who are interested. But again, organic gives them that ability. Gives them the ability to meet virtually the Danny Bonhoeffs of the world and read about their story, and people really engage with that. It also allows move away from the commodity fluctuations. So while we saw in that graphing the pricing, the conventional market goes up and down a lot, and the organic follows it to a certain extent, but probably at a less sharp amount, if you will. And there's also increasing amounts of allowed inputs and new technology to assist farmers, and I think quite a few of them were talked about there this morning, and certainly of assistance.